Hi, this is your host Swapnil Bhartiya and welcome to another episode of TFR Let's Talk. And today we have with us two guests from Pulumi and Lightstep. Austin Parker, Head of Developer Relations at Lightstep, and Kat Cosgrove, Developer Advocate at Pulumi. Austin, Kat, great to have you on the show.
Hello.
Great to be here.
And today we are going to have a fun discussion about the upcoming Deserted Island DevOps conference. Austin, tell me about the unique format of this event. It's a virtual event inside Animal Crossings where speakers are actually gathered on a real island.
Well, that's a great question, and thank you for having me again. It's wonderful to be back here and see you again. The short version of the story is, if everyone recalls, a couple years ago at the beginning of the pandemic, everyone was really into Animal Crossing for that first couple months. And I, like most people, were sitting around chopping trees, picking fruit. And I thought to myself, well, this is a fun little thing. And it's very kind of cute and a little comfortable. And, helps you forget about everything going on in the world outside. And I realized, well, you can have people come over to your island. And I was just looking around and I'm like, started building a room in my house there, and I found some chairs and I found some carpet and wallpaper that looked exactly like an airport Marriott. And I thought, this looks like where you would give a conference talk from, right? This looks like a DevOps Days set or something. And so I went on Twitter and I made some joking post about like, oh, well, we're just going to do all of our tech conferences in Animal Crossing now. People picked up on it and started running with it. And I sat back and thought, well, maybe we actually could do this. And so April 30th, 2020, the first Deserted Island DevOps happened. It's basically a live stream, right? If you're watching it, you just go to twitch.tv, you pull up the stream, you chat with people watching, and you see some really great talks. We've got 20 talks this year over 2 days. The thing that's different this year is it's still an Animal Crossing, but this time we got an actual island to broadcast from in the real world. And so all the speakers are going to come together and give their talks from this island. And you at home will be able to watch the talks as normal, but also there's some opportunities for you to kind of participate with that in-person part of it and have a lot of fun.
When you say island, you're talking about in-person experience, right?
Oh, yeah. In person. Actual physical island.
Right.
Mackinac Island in Michigan.
Kat, are you into gaming? Were you already into Animal Crossing, or because of this event you got addicted to it?
Yeah, actually, I think a lot of the people that were the most excited about the first Deserted Island DevOps had been playing Animal Crossing for a long time. They played the earlier ones on Game Boy and on GameCube. But I had actually never played Animal Crossing before. The new one was my first Animal Crossing, and I used Deserted Island DevOps as an excuse to buy it. And not only that, but as an excuse to buy a Switch. I didn't even own a Nintendo Switch at the time. So that was like my entire justification to myself for buying a whole nother console and a video game. Not unusual for me. I play a lot of video games, so it wasn't like that irresponsible a purchase. But I enjoyed it much more than I thought I would. And it was what we all needed at the time, right? Like we couldn't go anywhere. This was like peak lockdown. Couldn't go anywhere. We couldn't see anybody. And this was like the softest way to kind of sort of still interact with our friends by having them over to each other's islands and also like participating in just like the weird culture that popped up around it online. So Deserted Island DevOps was it was very comfy, It was very comfy, and I think we all really needed that at the time.
You said irresponsible purchase, but I kind of disagree with it, right? If you're a gamer, then there is no irresponsible purchase.
It's true. This conversation is coming to you from a desktop PC that I primarily use for gaming. So it looks like a gamer built this PC because even my RAM has RGB LEDs on it. It's a little bit over the top.
Your LEDs have LEDs.
I'm afraid that this show is going to be more about gaming than about the event, but I personally never got into Animal Crossing. I'm heavily into open world games and I always pre-order this Ghost of Tsushima or Horizon Zero Dawn. I mostly play on PlayStation 5, but I play some games on Xbox Series S, PC, and Nintendo Switch. the fact is that I go wherever the game is. I'm not kind of loyal to a single platform.
Yeah, well, I actually want to point out something. I think you've inadvertently come across a good point, and some people have asked over the years, like, why would you do, because there's a lot of other virtual worlds out there that you could use, right? People like to talk about metaverse or whatever these days. Second Life, there were a lot of the Second Life jokes early on. I think what actually is very liberating about restricting ourselves to Animal Crossing as the virtual world is that it puts a lot of constraints on you as a speaker, right? Like you have a very limited amount of ways you can emote in the game. You have a very limited set of sort of objects to build within the game. But those constraints that puts on it I think helps you be more creative, right? Because you have a much more limited sort of visual language. It's easier for people to understand things about someone's style, right? A good example of this is in the first time we did this, Kat was a speaker. Now I'm making her triumphant return to the stage as a keynote speaker this time. So yeah, first two-time speaker badge. But there was a moment where Kat walks up and she has this little crown, right? A little crown on her avatar, on her villager. And it was remarkable because it said something to the audience that was extremely, like, it was very Kat like, if you know Kat Cosgrove at all. That crown was had said so much about her personality in a way that other people's clothing choices also something about their personality. And so I think that level of expressiveness that you can get when you have these constraints, and I think the amount of kind of hoops to jump through and other things that had to happen to get it to happen, like that all made it a really special and unique experience that I don't think many virtual events certainly, and maybe not a lot of DevOps conference either, kind of go for, right? Is playing to that idea of, hey, let's put boxes on us other than just like time, right? And let's figure out a way to do things that are kind of cool within those boxes.
Yeah, if you don't know, the thing with the crown is that at the time, it was the most expensive and time-consuming item to get in the game. It took a lot of effort and grinding to get that, and I committed hard. I committed hard. It was a flex. I was on that grind set, that Animal Crossing grind set, and it was worth it for the impact it made. For a video game I bought just to give a talk.
But it was fun.
Yeah,
It was.
Yeah. So since there is going to be a physical island, so it's not as deserted as it used to be, right?
I think we're all on our own deserted islands in a way, aren't we? I think that's my pandemic lesson was that we really are, no matter what change, when we're apart or when we're together, everyone is on their own deserted island. And I think having something that reminds us that we can still come together in person or virtually, and be part of a community that is pretty deliberate. One of the things that we've tried to do, I think, is have a very deliberate sort of practice of giving back. So last year we started a program where this is, not only a great place to come and get some talks about, DevOps, Kubernetes, security, all that good stuff, but we also are trying to really explicitly give back. So we run a donation drive or a fundraiser during this. So we really try to give back through this as well, right? We've done the first year we did, everyone kind of like shouted out a local charity that people could give to. And this year, much like last year, we're doing sort of a live donation thing where people can donate to the Trevor Project, which is a charity that helps out, transgender teenagers and people like that, And it's really, one of the things that was really cool about that is, there's a lot of people in sort of the tech and the DevOps space that, like these are things that we care about, right? As a community, not just for ourselves, but for our coworkers, for our friends. And, one nice thing about working in tech is that you're usually somewhat well off enough that you can throw a couple bucks to help people that need it. And I think we've seen, as part of the pandemic, that, a lot of people need help out there. And if we can do something as speakers and as people that are like notable or influential in our fields in any way, to kind of give back and help, I think we owe it to ourselves and to the world to do what we can.
Kat, let's talk about your session. And as Austin said, you are now a keynote speaker. What are you going to talk about?
I am talking about open source communities. I have an opinion that as more and more commercial, like proprietary software relies on open source software built by communities of like very different people with opinions and values that deserve to be respected, um, there's a kind of a shift that needs to take place with both the organizations consuming open source software and the organizations that are often responsible for maintaining those communities. Unlike with proprietary software that you build in-house, you cannot control an open source community. You can't do it. You cannot tell them what to do. You don't sign their paychecks. We're mostly doing this for free because we enjoy the tool, because we like the community, because we like what the tool does for the world, whatever. We're doing it because we want to. And as a result, the way you interact with an open source community can't be the same as the way you interact with an engineering team whose paychecks you sign. You cannot just expect everybody to just do what you say. You have to actively like nurture a relationship with that community. You have to listen to the will of that community, because without them, your product may not exist, like straight up. The maintainers can just mutiny if they want. That doesn't happen very often, but it's happened before and it will probably happen again at some point. So there's kind of like a cultural shift that needs to take place within organizations that are either profiting from or responsible for open source communities. Some of this is based in personal experience. Some of it is based in just history, things that we know have happened, drama that's well documented on the internet, and some of it is from friends' experiences. But I just don't think it's something that companies and organizations can really afford to ignore anymore. Like the community of maintainers is important. Their opinions matter, and you cannot treat them like your engineers.
Kat, what do you think of this hybrid format of new events where they have both in-person and virtual event? Yes, the fact is that there are many people who still don't feel comfortable with all this travel. And then there are other reasons which were already there in early time, like visa and cost.
I overwhelmingly prefer it. I would like to see this stay forever. For a variety of reasons. One, if I get sick or if I can't travel for whatever reason, I can still speak, and I don't have to pull out of the event, right, and put a whole bunch of extra stress on the organizers. I can just record my talk, or I can present it virtually live. Either way, it doesn't bother me. But that's just a personal thing. Overall, I prefer it largely because of accessibility reasons. I still work with some bootcamp students and do some mentorship, and they don't have the money or the ability to travel to go to events. Like, even if it is like in the US and they don't have to like leave the country or they don't have to get a visa, even if you're not dealing with like international students, that's still prohibitively expensive. Like, the cost of going to anything other than like a DevOps days pretty much is outrageous for just the ticket alone. And virtual events are generally either like heavily reduced in price or they're free. And that still allows people who can't travel because of money or because of accessibility reasons, like maybe they simply cannot leave their house, they're immunocompromised, they're disabled in some way that would prevent them from going to an event, they can still attend and learn. And ultimately what we want out of events like this is to like get our talks out to as many people as possible. So it's better for me because more eyes are on it, and it's better for attendees because more people have the ability to go. So it's something I extremely hope stays. Oh, also it's easier to caption virtual events than it is to caption an in-person only event. So that's another accessibility reason to be doing this virtually still.
Austin, this is going to be a tricky question for you because I'm going to ask you which talks or speakers you are looking forward to listening to.
So I think, maybe first though, I do want to point out, just add something onto what Kat said. I think there's like one thing that we're trying to do very specifically with this is that we're trying to make sure that it is a hybrid event, but the hybrid part is that the speakers are together, right? The speakers are on the island, the audience is all virtual. I think that way we can ensure a really good uniform experience for both groups. Speakers are able to kind of travel and participate in a slightly more safe way because we can say like, okay, well, there's only going to be like 20 people there, right? We can enforce masking. We can make sure everyone's vaccinated. We can try to make it, because I don't want to get sick either, right? And we do have people that are going to be speaking virtually. Huh?
I haven't had COVID yet, and I'm trying to keep it that way as long as possible.
Exactly. But we can also accommodate like virtual speakers, and I think we have people that are going to be speaking virtually and pre-recorded, so it actually makes it a lot easier as an organizer of a virtual event to have the speakers kind of co-located from a production quality standpoint. As as someone that kind of does remote interviews, like it can be really challenging because not everyone has a great mic and a great internet setup and da 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 da. So being able to kind of have everyone in person actually, I feel like makes it more accessible to speakers in a lot of ways. And we have a lot of really great speakers this time, and we've actually been able to, thanks to very generous sponsorship by Lightstep, we've been able to support, bringing in some international speakers that are going to be kind of coming to the U.S. and actually giving their talk, which is great. A couple of the other ones I really have to shout out Heidi Waterhouse, who's going to give another one of our keynotes. She's, if you've ever heard her speak before, she gives a great talk. We have a couple of really interesting talks on security. We have talks on remote distributed communication and sort of mental health and observability. Like two other speakers I really want to shout out. One is Pete Cheslock, who's going to be giving what promises to be an extremely interesting talk on the evolution of observability, which I'm personally very curious about. We also have a talk from Chris Short, who is at AWS, runs the DevOps newsletter, and he's going to be giving a talk that I believe has never been given before on kind of his journey through tech with sort of mental health. And I think that's going to be really, I think it'll give everyone a lot to think about, and kind of hopefully make them, I don't know, grateful or.
It's a good talk for Chris to give.
Yeah, I think he's a perfect person to give it. And I'm, one thing we've always tried to do with this event is not just focus on the technology, right? Like, I think the people are at the core of what we do, of what I do as a job. And I think as what DevOps is about as sort of a cultural touchstone. And so a lot of our talks do wind up being like, how do you, about you as a person, about being a healthy person, not just, a really good Kubernetes admin.
Austin, Kat, thank you so much for taking time out today and for this very fun and engaging discussion about the deserted island DevOps. And those who want to register for the conference, we have the link in the show notes below. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I hope to see everyone on September 14th and 15th. Deserted Island DevOps 2022.